Next topic is JAX-RS injection annotation. So here we're going to actually see a few annotations, extra annotations that you can use, starting with the path param, matrix param, query param, form param, and the bean param. We are not going to actually spend much on the bean param. And then header param and cookie param and context annotation. So basically using this annotation is called the injection annotation, is because by using these annotations you could actually inject some useful data into your code. So it is like a dependency injection. So let's take a look at the path param, query param default value, and matrix param, form param, and bean param. So what is a URI path template? The concept of URI template, URI path template, is that it is a URI that contains variables. Okay, so if you're using path annotation, and if you happen to have the curly brace with the name of the variable, then whatever value after, in this case, users, is going to be considered as the changing value or variable. So in this case, the example.com/users, and the value after that will be captured as a username variable. Now, in order to access that username variable, you have to also use path param annotation. So here you specify path param annotation, and you're going to specify the same name here, username, and then it will receive, as in this case, my username argument, and then you can use my username argument in your code. Okay, so two things: you have to actually use a curly brace to specify it as the variable, and then in order to access it, then you have to use a path param annotation. Okay, so in this case, you are going to actually receive as a string, right? So there is no conversion required. String value will be actually received as a string value. But later on, we are going to actually see an example where kind of ID variable will be received as int value, and in that case, the JAX-RS runtime will convert the string of ID into int ID or long ID and things like that. Okay, so again, this is an example where we are using path param annotation to access a fragment of the URI. Okay, in this case, username. Okay, so that is path param. So path param extract data from the URI. So in this case, 123 will be captured like a path param. And query param, on the other hand, is trying to retrieve the data from a query parameter. So this is an example. Suppose I want to capture data, of the start. So I want to capture this value 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 as values. Okay, so let's see how these two annotations are used. So again, we have seen example of path param already. So in this case, suppose I want to receive URL, in this case host catalog /items and 1 to 3, and I want to receive this 1 to 3 as an ID. In that case, I'm going to use path annotation and then curly brace ID, so it will receive this 1 to 3 or 5 whatever value here as an ID variable. And in order to access it, again, you're going to use path param annotation, specifying name of that variable, and here you're going to receive as an ID long. So the conversion of ID of string 1 to 3 into long will be done by the framework. You don't have to actually worry about the conversion yourself. Okay, so that is path param. Now, in order to receive query param, so in this case, we have a URL and we have a question mark and we have a set of request parameters, right? So in this case, the start equals 0. So we want to capture value of the start query parameter. In this case, you are going to use query param. So you say query param, and you're going to actually receive the start value, in this case 0. Right? Now in this case, the second example in this case is that we want to actually receive size query parameter, okay, but we don't have in this example size, right? In that case, we can use a default value annotation. So if the size request parameter, like ampersand and then size equal 5 or something like that, if that is not present, which is the case in our example here, then we want to use the default value of 3. Okay, so this is how you can use a default value. Okay, URI path template variable with the regular expression pattern example in this case. So you can specify regular expression along with your variable here. So in this case, if username that is specified as part of the URL, meaning the username that is coming from the client is not matching this with regular expression. So in this case, it has to start with the alphabetic character and then alphabetic character plus number, right? So if this regular expression does not get matched, then it will return. The client will experience 4.4 error. Okay, all right. Matrix prom sets the name value URI path. So you could actually have something like this. You have users, and then you have a semicolon, and then you can have a set of semicolon delimited username, the key value pairs. So in this case, username Sang Shin and age 20 or something like that. So these are the matrix parameters. So in order to access these matrix parameters, then you're going to use a matrix prom annotation. So in this case, I'm using matrix prom username. So it should actually receive the Sang Shin as a username argument here, and same thing for age. Okay, so and then you should be able to actually use this username and age argument in your code. In this case, we are just constructing string output, and then we are just returning it to the client. Okay, form param is actually receiving form parameters. So suppose you have the HTML page, okay, which contains this is the input field. It does have a name and age field, right? So when this form is submitted, your REST service should be able to access each of these form field by using form param annotation. So in this case, form param name here, form param age, and we should be able to access those form fields with these arguments, name and age. Okay, so that is form param. Okay, so we can actually work with path param, query param, and default values and form param first. So that's exercise 1. So exercise 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's take a look at the lab documentation. Okay, so labs and the injection. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna actually try 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically path param example, matrix example, query example, and form param example. So let's actually import. Yeah, so it looks like I have already imported it. So let's actually path param here. So I'm gonna just stop the previous running application, and then right click and run as and Java application and main application. Okay, so it's up and running. So I'm going to yeah, so here I probably should be able to do this one. Oh, not quite. So I'm going to just the window and local 8080. Okay, so now I can click Sang Shin. It should return the my name is Sang Shin, age is 20. And if I try to access, that is not present. There is no resource that handle this guy. Then it should actually receive 4.4 error. So that's expected, right? Okay. All right. So that is the first exercise, path param. So for your own exercise, basically, so you can certainly try with the call command, right? Okay. And this is the code. We are using path param username and username here. Okay. So add another method which takes the users and country and city and username. Okay. And I want you to display these things. All right. So you want to capture the country, city, and username URL fragments, and then just display it. Okay. Matrix param, when you run the application, it should actually display like this. Nothing really fancy about it. Okay. So again, this is an example where we are just receiving username and age. Okay. All right. For your exercise, modify the getUser method or add a new method which handles the username Sang, age, country, and city. Okay. Query param. So let's actually run the query param. Stop it, and the query param. So let's run this guy. Run as Java application, main application. Okay, so this is the query params. It's basically using username and JUnit, and when I click this guy, it should actually display, the value that I have. So if I change this one, instead of JUnit, I'm gonna say XYZ or something, and then it does display the age. XYZ age is 20. So if I want to actually, specify the age, then I should be able to say ampersand sign age 999 or something like that. Then it should display 999. Okay, so that is a query parameters. Okay, so for your exercise, I want to display country USA and city Boston as well. Form param. So let's actually run the form param. So stop it and form param. So when I run this application, run as Java application main application, and then localhost 8080. Yeah, so I have a form field. If you take a look at the source file, basically we have the input field name and age, right? Okay, so I'm going to actually name JPassion, and age is 888, and we're going to click add user to submit it. Then it will return JPassion age 888. Okay, so basically we are capturing the value in the form of form params. Okay, for your exercise, I want you to add hobby field and capture that. Okay, all right, so I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes, and let's actually have 10 minutes, 15 minutes break as well. So we'll be back in 20 minutes. So we'll be back 12:40. Okay. Next, we are going to see header param annotation and cookie param annotation. So header param annotation is used to retrieve header value of a request. So here we have a method called add user, and if it wants to retrieve accept header value, then it's going to use header param, and you specify the name of the request header, and you're gonna receive it, in this case accept, and all it does in this case is just return the value of it. So that is header param. Cookie param is basically to get the value of a cookie from the cookie value, basically by specifying cookie param and name of the cookie, and what you get back is the cookie object. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna actually do exercise 5, which is basically just the header param. We don't have a cookie param exercise. So let's see, header param. So here we have header param, and stop the previous running application, and header param run as Java application and main application. And okay, so here we are going to retrieve header param, in this case accept, and it just returns accept header. Okay, pretty straightforward. So here now here, if you try to call, let's try call. It's actually, if you actually try to call here, it's actually returning add user is called accept. I mean, it's basically star and star because we haven't really actually sent any accept header. When you're calling this resource, when you're accessing this resource using a browser in fact actually set these things up automatically, right? So if I set that accept header with this, and then this is the going to return the same result you see when you're using a browser. Okay, so basically we are just using the header param. Okay, for your exercise, and add another method called myNewMethod that display content type request header, and you're going to use a call to send the content type request as following. So here I'm basically sending content type application/JSON, and then you're going to actually call myNewMethod, and you should actually return the content type that you specify here. Okay. Why don't I actually move on to the context, the presentation, and then I'm gonna let you guys have time to do exercise 5 and the exercise 6 as well. Context annotation. So context annotation is probably the most powerful annotation in this context as an injection annotation. So by using context annotation, you can actually inject URI info object, HTTP headers object, security context object, request object, and providers object. Yeah, we haven't learned the concept of providers yet, so you can think of these providers is as a system level object. For example, message marshaller or message converter, so to speak. I mean, the same thing. So we're gonna actually mostly focus on the first 4. So context, so let's actually see context. So when you run the application, you should be able to actually see a bunch of URIs, a bunch of the URIs that you can actually play around. So let's actually try to run this stuff, and then context. Right click, run as Java application, main application. Okay, so application is up and running, and localhost 8080. And now, so URI info absolute path. So we're gonna learn URI info in a bit more detail in another presentation. Basically, URI info object give you a way of finding out what is the URL path to your resource. Okay, so it's going to, in this case, providing absolute path to the resource. This one is accept header. So again, this is the accept header. Okay, so this is another way to access HTTP header, the request header. Security context, is it secure or not? I mean, at this point it's false because we do not have any authentication done, so it should return false. Method of request method should actually return get. Okay, and then providers. So these are all system level. The providers. So this is actually a jackside as providers object. Okay, so this is how things work. Okay, now let's take a look at the code. And of course, you can certainly run a call. Okay, same thing with this guy. And so let's take a look at the code. So here we inject URI info object and HTTP headers object, security context object, request object, and providers object. So by using this context annotation, basically you're asking the container to inject these objects in your code. So by the time you're calling one of these, the object, they should be set. So in this case, basically I'm calling URI info, and I'm basically calling get absolute path method, and then I convert to a string object. In this case, we are just using HTTP headers, and then we are going to call get request headers, and then I'm going to call accept get method with the accept header, and I'm actually getting the first entry of it. So this is the pattern. Even if you actually call get method, it actually returns in the form of an array. Okay, so in the form of collection object. So basically you have to actually call another get method providing the index of it. Okay. And here security context object, you can actually call is secure method. It will return true or false because there is no user who authenticated accessing this resource. I should return false. Okay. This one is, I get the request object injected, and we can call get method, and it should return, in this case, get method. Okay. For providers, we actually call providers, and then we just kind of display as a string value. Okay. Okay, so for your exercise, from URI info object, display base URI URL of the request. Okay, so you should be able to actually see, if you take a look at the code here, and the user resource here, you should be able to actually see Java documentation of URI info. So Shift F2. And take a look at what method you can actually call. So you can actually call get base URL, base URI, and it will give you base URI of the application. So try to call and see what it returns. Okay, so that is basically an exercise. Add another method with a put annotation and verify request get method returns put. Okay, and you can use, you have to actually use a call or a postman to send the put request, of course. And you can use injection annotation on method argument instead of the fields. So basically what we have is we are actually getting this object injected into a fields, right? But we should be able to actually get these objects to be injected as an argument. Okay, so in here so basically instead of accept here, I should be able to actually get context HTTP headers like this. What is I'm copying on, yeah, Control M. So headers accept. So I should be able to get, I'm gonna just select this guy, copy, and I should be able to do something like this, and it should work exactly the same. All right. So let me just restart the application, and it should work the same. Okay. So yeah, so I might actually just delete HTTP headers. Okay, so I'm gonna just comment this guy out, and then rerun the application. Okay, so this time we are receiving this HTTP headers object as the argument, but it's again injected by the container. Okay, so let's actually run the application here. Here, localhost 8080, and accept. It should work the same. Okay, yeah, so that worked the same. So that is an exercise. So you are going to get that context object injected as an argument rather than the injection on the field level. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys about the 10 minutes to do exercise 5 and 6.